Francisco, be sure to wear some flowers in your hair.
Welcome back. It's been a long time since I've done one of my one-hit wonder videos, and this latest one has a bit of a theme. I'm going to cover two tracks, both of which have a decided mid to late 60s / flower power vibe. Should be pretty fun. And as you've just heard, we're going to start with a tune which has actually had several different titles depending on which issue you're talking about. It's been known variously as San Francisco, Be Sure to Wear Flowers in Your Hair, or San Francisco, Be Sure to Wear Some Flowers in Your Hair, and even the slightly more direct San Francisco, Wear Some Flowers in Your Hair. And before I forget, I'm sure many of you noticed already, did you catch Rolling Stones guitarist Brian Jones there in the beginning of that video wearing the sort of puffy jacket? And I believe that may have been Anita Pallenberg with him. Maybe any of you that know for sure can confirm or deny. Now that footage was taken at the legendary Monterey Pop Festival. I used to have this album called Jimmy Plays Monterey. It came out in the mid-'80s and I just went looking for it and it seems to have disappeared, unfortunately. But I distinctly remember Brian Jones introducing Jimmy's set on that. If I recall, his voice opens the album. And that footage from the Monterey Pop Festival is not just some kind of coincidence. This song was written by John Phillips of Mamas and the Papas fame, and it was quite literally written to promote the festival, which took place in 1967, kicking off the Summer of Love in California. But beyond just promoting the event, it was also hoped that the song would help assuage some fears that had begun building among the local authorities of Monterey, California. For those of you who aren't familiar, Monterey is kind of a sleepy little coastal town that's about 100 miles or so south of San Francisco. And I think the thought of a bunch of unwashed hippies, druggies, bikers, we saw a couple of them in that opening video as well, descending on the town had some people a little bit worried. And yeah, if you read the lyrics with this in mind, it makes perfect sense. If you're going to San Francisco, be sure to wear some flowers in your hair. If you're going to San Francisco, you're going to meet some gentle people there, not violent, scary bikers, gentle people. The song is sung, of course, by Scott McKenzie, and even though he hung around the music business for many years after, he never had anything approaching the success of this song as a performer, although he did co-write the Beach Boys' #1 hit, Kokomo, in 1988, and he also toured in a later revamped lineup of the Mamas and the Papas. For the longest time, I wondered why John Phillips didn't just record this song with the Mamas and the Papas. It seemed like it would have been a good fit, but as far as I can tell, it sounds like he just wanted to do a favor for his buddy. He and Mackenzie were childhood friends. They had played together in a group called the Journeymen, and Mackenzie actually turned down an early offer to be a member of the Mamas and the Papas. And I have to say, I think it's a really cool thing that Phillips was willing to do a favor for his friend in this way. Apparently, the rest of the Mamas and the Papas were pretty upset with him for giving the song away. I mean, they passed up a big hit. And it's good to know about this, especially in light of what we know about John Phillips' biography. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this. I'm not going to get into the gory details, but he was up to some pretty heinous things in his personal life. So it's nice to see something a bit more positive regarding John Phillips. And who knows, maybe it's just because this is the version I've known my whole life. But I'm glad they gave the song to Mackenzie. I think the guy had a beautiful voice. And if the Mamas and Papas had done it, it almost certainly would have been heavily harmonized, which I normally love. But I think for this tune, just that stark, solo, melodious voice of Mackenzie works really well. And by the way, even though he didn't sing it, Phillips was heavily involved in the recording. He played guitar in a session that was rounded out by session musician Gary L. Coleman on orchestral bells and chimes. Those are a really nice touch here. You had John Osborne on bass, and on drums, the legend Hal Blaine. Musically, I think this tune is amazingly well written. It's very simple on the surface, but it's got just enough clever changes along the way to keep it interesting. Right? We start off on this G major drone, and I'm always surprised at how long it goes on there in the beginning. Eventually we land on E minor, which is the relative minor key of G. If you're going to San Francisco. So E minor is 1, C is 6, G is 3, D is 7 in the key of E minor. I like the addition of the 5 chord B minor late in the verse. You're gonna meet some gentle people there. Okay, second verse, much the same as the first, but after that we get a nice change. There's a bridge, an abrupt move up to key of F, right? The verse ends on D. We pop up a minor third. All across the nation, such a strange sensation. People in motion. Things get a lot more urgent there. I love that. And by the way, just listening to this just now, I think I hear a little Jim Morrison in this guy's voice. Not as dark for sure. Not only in vocal timbre, but also just the general feeling he gives off. But I could hear Morrison doing this. Sounds like something you might have heard on Soft Parade. But my favorite part, bar none, comes in the third verse. We've had that killer bridge. Phillips could have just phoned it in here with a third verse that's identical to the first two. But he pops in a couple of extra chords this time. See if you can make it out. For those who come to San Francisco. Right? All the other times it was E minor, straight to C, straight to G, and D. But now the C is preceded by A minor. Right here. And the D is preceded by B minor. Those are substitute chords. A minor and C can be used interchangeably. And same with B minor and D. You notice how similar they sound, but putting both of them in there is just brilliant. But Phillips still has one more surprise left for us. Towards the end, we get summertime will be a loving there. From G, we get E minor, and then another key change, key of A major, F sharp, A, right? If you come to San Francisco. It's just this great little denouement there, and they fade out on that. Great piece of songwriting. I gotta say, if I had written this, I wouldn't have wanted to give it away. San Francisco made it to number 4 in the US, number 1 in the UK, and that surprised me a little bit. I don't know exactly why, but it just seems like a very American song to me, being about San Francisco and all. But maybe it's one of those cases where life in San Francisco in 1967 just seemed very exotic and cool to the Brits. Hard to say. Now, I realize this song rubs a lot of people the wrong way. I'm sure I'm going to get some comments where people are saying, oh, it's cheesy, I can't stand it. And I get it. I know the lyrics in particular do read like one cliche after another. Summertime will be a love in there. I totally get it, but For me, it works. I think it's a great little time capsule. And again, musically, I think it's just so beautiful. But of course, I want to know what you all think.
Those are good years on the wing, and you may not know why. Come on, people now, smile on your brother, everybody get together, try to love one another right now. Come on, people now, smile on your brother, everybody get together, try to love one another right now.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I just had to do that because it's such a funny juxtaposition. What we've just heard, of course, was a little piece of Get Together by the Youngbloods. That's far and away the most well-known version of a song that has been recorded many different times in many different styles by different artists. We're going to talk about that. But it was immediately followed up by a little piece from Nirvana's 1991 breakthrough album, Nevermind, the intro of a song in which bass player Chris Novoselic ironically quotes the chorus from a song that's all about peace, love, and understanding as the introduction to a song that is definitely not about peace, love, and understanding. A little ditty entitled Territorial Pissings. It's a great encapsulation of two very different mindsets in pop music over the years. Ostensibly, the late 60s were about love and flower power. I say ostensibly because there was a very dark side to that hippie scene as well. But by 1991, grunge bands like Nirvana and Alice in Chains had no illusions about their ability to make the world a better place. That said, let's dive into the very interesting history of this one. I find it kind of fascinating that this song has become one of the top hippie anthems of the late 60s, along with San Francisco, even though it was actually written in the early 60s, long before that whole movement was even thought of. It was written by a guy called Chet Powers, stage name Dino Valenti, who was a member of the seminal psychedelic rock band Quicksilver Messenger Service. Powers recorded his version way back in 1963, but get this, it wasn't officially released until 1996 on a compilation album called Someone to Love, The Birth of the San Francisco Sound. Unfortunately, he had passed away 2 years earlier in 94. Let's listen to a little piece of that version. It's definitely not what you're used to.
Know that love is on the wing and you need not know why. Well, people now, and get together, well, smile on your brother, trying to love one another right now.
Meanwhile, the very first official release was an instrumental version from a group called the Folk Swingers on their 1963 album, 12-String Guitar in Town. Yep, definitely a 12-string guitar there. That sound is unmistakable. Okay, so I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but I will mention the Kingston Trio performed this song regularly. The Jefferson Airplane included it on their debut album in 1966. And believe it or not, the Dave Clark 5 took it to number 8 on the UK singles chart, calling it Everybody Get Together. Interestingly, this is another one of those songs that's had slightly differing titles over the years. But again, obviously the only version that is really widely known is the Youngbloods version. And even for them, the path wasn't exactly smooth. They first released it as a single in 1967, and it only reached number 62 on the Billboard chart. But then in 1969, interest was revived when the song was used in a PSA promoting brotherhood by a group called the National Conference of Christians and Jews. And on the strength of that tailwind, it made it all the way up to number 5, the Youngbloods' one and only top 40 single. I really don't like most of the tabs I've seen online for this one. There are 2 guitars in the intro. One of them, I think, is capoed at the 2nd fret. That seems to be the most efficient way to do that opening. Okay, so that's based on 2 little triads. Think of a A major triad and a G major triad, but I'm going to remove my 2nd finger off the 1st string, giving me an open F sharp note that drones through both chords. It's a great effect. It's very satisfying to play, even though it's so simple. And that F sharp note, of course, relates differently to each chord. In terms of A, it's a 6th, and in terms of the G, it's the major 7. So I think I'm going to call that A6 to G major 7. Now, the 2nd guitar, I don't think you would want a capo. We're back to the G and A triads, but this time we're not lifting anything. Sliding up and down, and then he starts to add some little doodads on top. Sort of in that spirit. At some point, somebody rakes a very magical sounding A add 9 chord. Once again, brilliant use of open strings there. And we have to talk about these lyrics. If the San Francisco lyrics were a bit trite and hackneyed, I think these ones give a lot more food for thought. The opening verse, love is but a song we sing, fear's the way we die. You can make the mountains ring or make the angels cry. Though the bird is on the wing and you may not know why. Now, I may be reading way too much into this, but I take that as a message of empowerment, sort of. You probably won't figure out the answers to all of life's puzzling questions, but it doesn't matter. You can still do great things. You can make the mountains ring. You can make the angels cry, even if you don't know why. It's sort of an existentialist philosophy, I think. You know, life may be meaningless, but you can invest it with your own meaning. I think we're all well familiar with the chorus. I suspect it's burned into all of our brains at this point. But I want to talk about the 2nd verse because it seems to be coming from an entirely different place from the first. Some may come and some may go. We will surely pass. When the one that left us here returns for us at last. We are but a moment's sunlight fading in the grass. I don't know, it's really hard for me to read that as anything but a very Christian, New Testament, second coming type of statement. What do you guys think? And in the final verse, Powers seems to return to the empowerment theme again, telling us that whatever path we choose, the decision is ours. If you hear the song I sing, you will understand. Listen. You hold the key to love and fear all in your trembling hand. Just one key unlocks them both. It's there at your command. Pretty cool stuff. I never really listened to these lyrics properly until I decided to make this video, and I'm glad that I checked them out. All right, so that's going to be a wrap on this one. Once again, let me know what you guys think of these songs. Like them or not, I think they were both instrumental in helping to define a very important period in pop culture. Remember, if there's a subject you'd like to see covered, send me an email, go to mjerant.com. We can discuss, and for a nominal fee, I will custom make a video for you. All right, thanks again. Hope to talk soon.